It is the first day of August 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. I'm Chris Rose, all the way across the country from my guys who are sitting 2.5 feet apart from one another, Justin Pettick and Bobby Skinner. We are recording this on a day where the Giants do not have camp. So you must go through withdrawals today, Bobby.
I was actually, hoping to hang around, and Justin made me come into New York City, so I'm here today.
Nope, there's no hanging around, man.
What does the Florida boy think of New York City?
Oh,
I think it's nice if you go and visit and do the tourist stuff, but just like on a day-to-day basis, I don't know how anyone would ever want to be here.
Pennick, you gonna let him talk that way?
I don't think Justin disagrees.
No, I don't disagree, especially during the summer. Chris, you walk around New York City in the summer. It stinks. It just perpetually.
I also was all ready to go on the train today, driving to the train station, and I just you know what? I'm not doing that. I'm just driving it. I'm not dealing with the train and all that bullshit.
And also dealing with New Jersey Transit is quite the treat every single day too.
Oh my God! All right. So, truth be told, we are recording this obviously on a Wednesday before the Hall of Fame game, the Texans and the Bears, and we would have done this on Thursday after the game had Caleb Williams actually been allowed to play, but they were like, "Nah, sit this one out, kid." So we were like, "All right,
watch out for Austin Booker."
Okay, I'll mark that down.
Watch out for JJ Taylor.
There is also some Bears news though. They extended their wide receiver, whom they traded, and acquired from Carolina, where they also ended up getting Caleb Williams in that deal. Oh, that's a nice throw in as well.
I still can't get over Carolina doing that. Anyways,
so Moore got a 4-year, $110 million extension from the Bears. That is the 5th highest contract that a wide receiver has received. Devontae Adams is at the top. Justin Jefferson, we're just talking in terms of money, not per year. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, and DJ Moore. Good for him. I mean, you talk about a guy that was pretty much a one-man show a year ago, Pennick. That's who he was.
It's unbelievable, right? And I love the Bears getting this done now. They're in such good cap health going forward.
They're able to balance everybody's contracts out evenly. They're like the one team in the NFL that has not backloaded really any significant deal that they have.
And they realistically could be the biggest spenders in the next 2 free agencies, or making big trades, to help add pieces around Caleb Williams. I'm so excited for this team. But DJ Moore, I've been the DJ Moore fan club outside of Carolina for a few years now. I mean, he was 6th in NFL receiving last year, right? Which is, hey, a lot of good receivers have a lot of receiving yards. But I think for him to do it in the situation he was in is unbelievable. The guy put up 1,100 yards with Kyle Allen, Teddy Bridgewater, and Sam Darnold at his QB. And he was a 55% catch rate type guy. Went up to 70% last year. He was the 6th in receiving yards last year with Justin Fields as his quarterback, who has one 300-yard game in his career. So we're not talking about a flawed QB who has these big numbers but throws a bunch of interceptions and fumbles. No, he just doesn't throw for passing yards, and he was able to do that, right? I mean, Fields has 5 games with 250 passing yards in his entire career, and this guy was able to put up those numbers. I'm so excited for this to get done because it probably would have cost a lot more money if they did it a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is awesome for the Bears, and the Bears are just pointing up with everything.
And he's going to be 30 when he hits free agency again. That's still a prime year to get paid.
The thing that impressed me most was look at DJ Moore last year compared to the rest of the Bears wide receiver room. He had 36 more catches and more than 600 yards and 6 more TDs than the rest of the Bears wide receivers combined.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He was a one-man show, and yet, again, like I said, he wasn't we got so many targets, so he had a 52% catch rate. He had a 70% catch rate. That's what slot wide receivers aim to have, and he was able to do that while putting up the volume that he did. The 5 guys ahead of him: AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyreek Hill. He is by far was in the worst passing situation out of all of those spots, and even the guys below him. Ayuk, Nico Collins, Evans is I guess not in the best situation. Amari Cooper, Cooper, I guess would be the closest guy who's in a similar situation. He's always been unreal, and I think last year was the first year he got to really shine. But with the spotlight on the Bears this year, now I think he he's going to be a lot more mainstream than what he has been.
And that gets us to the bigger question about the Chicago Bears. With Caleb Williams now there and a much improved receiving room around DJ Moore, Panic, is it a stretch to say that the Bears are one of the 5 most interesting teams going into the season?
No, it's not. And I think the only reason why, like, again, I still feel like the Chicago Bears are almost like a forgotten team because Caleb Williams has been the number one guy for such a long time. He has been the number one overall draft pick for the last 2 years. Everybody has known it. And also basically since the Panthers, started to stink it up last year, and then they traded away their first round pick this year, we've kind of always known that Caleb Williams was going to be a Chicago Bear. There was some questions at the end of the year, but was there really ever a question that the Bears would not stick with Justin Fields to take one of the best QB prospects we've ever seen? So I feel like Caleb Williams to Chicago, and Caleb Williams being the number one overall pick, has been known for such a long time now that I almost feel like, okay, well, it's old news. It's not new news, but the way that defense is playing, like we're talking about, we're part of our episode today is second-year breakout players. There's like 2 candidates that I love on that Chicago Bears defense that could be possible second-year breakout players. They really turned it on towards the second half of last year after acquiring Montez Sweat, and we know what they did to upgrade their skill position units. So, yes, I think like we have the TPP coming out on the Bears, I think hopefully soon. Bobby and I are like pseudo Chicago Bears fans this year. Like we want to see them do tremendously.
They're the team
well.
I'm most interested in, right? Like,
yeah.
Obviously, they're not the biggest contender, but we're talking about like a team. You're like the Chiefs. Yeah, obviously the Chiefs is like they're interesting, but you kind of know what you're getting from them. The Bears are the most interesting because they have all this hype and all this talent, and it feels like a team ready to just go.
Oh yeah, it's not only that. It's that for my entire life, and I am twice your guys' age in some case, the Bears have always been the same. It's always been about a running game and a stout defense. And that's how they won in Super Bowl 20 with an incredible, incredible defense. They did have a good quarterback in Jim McMahon, but they weren't slinging it all over the yard. They have never had a 4,000-yard passer in their history.
That's
crazy.
They
have never had a quarterback that's thrown for 30 touchdowns. And this isn't an expansion team. It's a franchise that has been around since 1920. It's almost remarkable that they haven't had either of those things. So now you bring in Caleb Williams, who is just got bags full of talent. And some of the throws you've seen him make at USC over the years, or at Oklahoma when he started out, or even here in training camp, you're like, they've never had this in Chicago.
No.
They have never had this type of player. So I'm really curious to see how much latitude they give him and say, you know what? You are the quarterback godsend we've been waiting for. Let's scrap everything and change the way we've been doing business for decades and let you be the show.
Oh, I mean, I think they've built their offense to do that. They'll still run the ball a good amount. They invest in Swift. The only thing of the offseason I didn't like was the signing of Swift. But that offensive line is not a great offensive line, but it's probably league median, and you have Darnell Wright in year 2 who can make a jump.
Who can make a jump.
And they've always been like a good running unit. And then defensive. Now, we're not going to do the whole Bears team. The front still does worry me out of Montez Sweat, but I do think they have the guys in the linebacker room and the back end to make it work.
The Bears have drafted 2 quarterbacks in their history that have gone on to eventually make a Pro Bowl. Any guesses?
Did Rex make one? I was a Rex Grossman super fan, Florida Gators.
Oh, of course you were. Of course you were.
Mitchell was my favorite. I know Trubisky is one. I was actually at that Pro Bowl in the rain at 50 degrees in Orlando. I interviewed a giant second stringer in like a hybrid vehicle in the rain. And then the other one would be McMahon, I would guess. It would be.
Yeah. That's it. That's all we got. And Mitchell made it because 16 guys ended up pulling out of the Pro Bowl?
He had good box score stats that year.
Okay. By the way, I read something that you were talking quickly about the Bears' offensive line. Justin Fields had the most time to throw last season per snap.
That's
a him running around.
That's stat. Deceptive. Yeah, that's always a stat that's quite interesting.
Awful.
Like NFL fans will use the time to throw stat as to be like, see, this offensive line is good, or see, this offensive line is bad. It's very system driven. It's very QB driven. And it is, don't get me wrong, it is O-line driven. I like to look at, for those who are, curious at this stuff at home, and you like to spend a lot of time on all the sites like Next Gen, PFF, and Pro Football Reference. I like to distinguish the time to throw stat that you can find on Next Gen, and I'm pretty sure even PFF would have it too. But even Pro Football Reference likes to break it up too under the advanced passing category of time in the pocket, average time in the pocket. And I think the difference between your average time in the pocket versus time to throw, that could be a quarterback that likes to try and run around and extend plays and stuff like that.
That makes sense. All right, we got a little bit of camp news. Most of it is not good. That's what happens this time of year. You're just
it sucks.
You're praying your team gets through it, and a couple guys always get bit. Samson Ebukam tours Achilles, Colts practice. That's a real bummer, man. I think he led them in sacks a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of you two said that the Colts were kind of like the team that we don't? Was that you, Justin?
Yeah, it was me.
That we don't talk about enough.
It was me. But here's the thing. Now this Colts pass rush is it's not crazy deep, but it's deep. Like I would argue,
rotation is its strength.
Yes. I would argue the fact that they just have all these names that can go in, plug in and plug out, and they're all going to be solid. But the thing is that nobody stands out. And like, do you view them as elite? Do you view them as like, hey, I'm going to put my money on third down, Kwity Paye, like really making it back to the quarterback and having an impact play here? I don't think you would. And that's the issue with Ebukam going down, where you could say he maybe was like the leader of that group. And now Latu, who I really viewed as an advantage that during his rookie year, he wouldn't be fully relied on. And I still think they are deep enough where they won't fully rely on Latu, and he's playing like 70 or 80% of the snaps. But the depth chart gets thin, and for a unit that does rely on a lot of sacks, they don't get a lot of pressures and hits, but they do produce in the sack category. A group that does rely on that, it's concerning. And also a secondary that is young, and they acknowledged that it was young and inexperienced last year, and they didn't do a lot to upgrade it.
Yeah, and that's why there's two reasons why I'm not as high on the Colts as everyone seems to be. One, I don't like them keeping Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator with the talent that they have, right? But the strength was that front, right? Obviously, they still have DeForest Buckner, who's their top dog, but now you're asking more out of Latu. Tyquan Lewis is probably their second guy, and then Kwity Paye the third. And people will look at Deo Odiembo's year last year, but to me, that looked like more of an outlier year. I don't expect him to have the same production as last year. And like Justin mentioned, 5th in sacks, 22nd in pressure rate, you can probably expect it to get back to the median. Unless Latu just really, rocks out in year one, but you're asking a lot for him to be a top 3 reason that defense is successful.
He did have 23 and a half sacks his last 2 seasons in college. When we were all prepping for the draft, we all read the same thing, which was this guy is far and away the most skilled pass rusher in terms of what's already in his bag. Usually guys come to the league, they've got one thing, and they're just so much more athletically gifted than the guy they're going against in college that's how they win.
That's also the worry I have, though, too, is that like he does the cross chop and all that stuff. NFL tackles are just so much better prepared for that.
Right.
Where it's like, that's where it's like athleticism can take over, where it's like, okay, well, he's not that elite athlete that, Dallas Turner is, or he's not that big, strong dude that Verse is. And that, so he may be a guy that gets 9-10 sacks his rookie year, but I have worries on how effective he's going to be on the down out basis.
Yeah.
And he struggles in the run game a lot too. So
the Colts were the only team last year that had at least 4 guys with 8+ sacks. Now one of those guys is gone.
Yeah.
In fact, the guy who ate the most. AFC South, I forgot how everybody had it this year. We all had Houston at the top, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jacksonville.
I go Colts too.
Bobby?
I believe in Anthony Richardson that much.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't believe in Anthony Richardson's health, though.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that defense.
Okay.
I don't know. I could make an argument for all 3 of those teams as second place. Even the Titans, I could make a good argument for. I don't know what I said last time, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Titans too.
Oh,
Titans too.
Yeah, I'm a Tennessee believer.
Okay.
I love it.
By the way, did you see Jeff Simmons losing it on that radio host?
Yes.
What is
Yes.
shouldn't like one, you shouldn't do that. Two, are people saying bad things about Jeff? He's like their best player. What's going on with that?
I don't know if the guy was talking in particular about Jeffrey Simmons or about the Titans in general.
Okay.
And so that's why
He was just sounded dumb, where he's like, you do a lot of talking on social media. It's like, yeah, that's my job. And I'm saying we can talk right now. We're 5 feet away from each other. Why don't we talk?
Right.
So that's just now, hey, I kind of like my superstar defensive tackle to be a little insane too, but it was just it was so odd.
Yeah.
And I like the radio host didn't back down, right? A lot of radio hosts would have gotten soft in that moment.
No, he didn't.
Because a giant man, he was like, we'll talk right now. Like,
right.
So I don't know who that radio host is, but I like him.
Well, that should be a rule. Like, if you do talk shit for a living, you need to go into the locker room. You can't be one of those people that runs and hides.
Absolutely.
So you have to be able to go down to the field. Now, you know, if you're a national person, you're not going to be able to go to all 32 teams. But when you're there, you got to show your face, and
yeah,
you know, whatever you write or whatever you say, you're responsible for. It's a little chicken shit to kind of say something and then run and hide. I've had times where I had Gary Sheffield very early on. You remember Gary Sheffield, don't you?
We've talked about this on the show before, right?
He's another one of my favorite lunatics.
Okay. Yeah, Gary Sheffield, the first time he came on the Best Damn Sports Show, period. He looked at me, he's like, why have you been saying all this stuff? And I was like, because this
What'd
is
you
what
say
I
about
believe.
Gary?
I don't even remember. This was 20 plus years ago. And then I saw him at the All-Star game up in Seattle. Gave me a big hug. I like that. That felt better. That felt better than the time he was staring me down, because there's not a lot of baseball players that will intimidate you. That was one.
Yeah.
Batwing.
So watch out if you're in Tampa.
Yeah. Let's see. More bad pass rushing news. Sam Williams torn ACL at Cowboys practice on Sunday. Obviously, this is a depth piece on their defensive line. Had 4.5 sacks a year ago. We haven't spent a ton of time talking about Dallas's defense. It always seems to be about Dak and his contract and the fact that they might not have a true one in the running game, and CD and his contract, all sorts of stuff. We haven't focused on the fact that Dan Quinn, who was very good as a defensive coordinator the last several years, is gone. Mike Zimmer, who actually started his NFL career with the Cowboys 30 years ago, is back calling plays after being out of the league since he left Minnesota. What do we expect out of this Dallas defense, Bobby?
So this is why the other day I was like, this might be like a fall apart team, right? And the headline goes to the Dak contract situation. CD's going to get done at some point before the season starts, I would assume. But something that they lost this offseason was depth, right? They lost Dorrance Armstrong and they lost Dante Fowler to the Commanders with Dan Quinn. But Sam Williams was like that best depth piece after Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. And now they're relying on Marshawn Nealon, the rookie out of Western Michigan. Was it Western Michigan or Western?
Yes.
Yeah, Western Michigan, to be that third guy there. And also, Mike Zimmer's not going to play his defensive tackles the same way that Dan Quinn did, right? He's having Mosley Smith beef back up, and they're going to be worrying about the run game instead of penetrating and attacking. And that's what that Dallas defense did so well, was just come after your ass all game long. So I think Zimmer's a good defensive coordinator. I think they'll have them all right, but they may not be the top 5 defense that they've been under Dan Quinn.
They were top 5 in both total defense and in scoring defense, I believe. They had 6 defensive touchdowns a year ago. The last 3 years under Dan Quinn, they forced 93 turnovers. Like, that's how they made. Everybody always says, "Oh, well, we want to get more turnovers. We want to." That's how Dallas lived, and that's how they won some games in their cases.
And what's crazy is that first year of Dan Quinn, they had all those turnovers, and they were a defense where, like, yeah, they're probably going to regress back to the mean a little bit.
They just never did.
Turnovers are hard to duplicate on a year in, year out basis, and like you said, they just never did. I think Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland for the last 3 years have a combined like 30-something interceptions, and Bland has only been there for 2 of those years, and Diggs was out all of last year. Like, it's unreal what they've been able to do in the turnover department. One of the biggest things I'm looking for in this year for Dallas is, how do they use Trayvon Diggs, who is a guy who can give up yards, and it's the same with Deron Bland. How are they using those guys differently than the way Dan Quinn did?
Yeah, because especially you have Mike Zimmer towards the latter part of his time with Minnesota. These players are much better on Dallas, but Minnesota was known for their offense. And I gave Mike Zimmer a lot of credit for, finding these offensive minds and finding these offensive coordinators that, hey, you could just plug and play and they're still pretty good, right? So I have a lot of questions, and especially when you get down to that pass rush, I actually thought that Sam Williams was going to start poking at DeMarcus Lawrence for some playing time, because if you look at the advanced stuff for DeMarcus Lawrence, it's not good. There's flashes. He has some really good games, and especially his good games against my Giants against bad tackle play, but it's not pretty anymore. And Sam Williams, man, a guy that I've always liked, a guy that kind of needed just to get his head in the right place and stay out of trouble.
Get his speed down.
Yeah, get the speed down.
Remember Jerry Jones last year?
Yeah.
Because he got like arrested for like doing 110, and then the next year he got like arrested for doing 90, and Jerry Jones was like, yeah, there's been progress.
Yeah, we're getting the speed down. So again, that's just an example of, again, they were working with him, and I thought he was going to really break out, and I thought this was going to be the year. So it's a shame, but it exposes DeMarcus Lawrence, and then who's up after him and Micah Parsons? Marshawn Nealand, or is Osa Odighizuwa still going to be as effective from the interior with the type of defense that Mike Zimmer runs? We shall see, but it's certainly it's a question.
Do you guys think that Micah Parsons has been used the right way so far? I want to read you a stat here. He is second in quarterback pressure since he came into the league 3 years ago, but he's 37th in pass rush attempts. So everybody else is getting so many more opportunities, but he is making the most of them. Do we think that he is being used the right way?
Yeah, because he can do that, and like you said, it's not removing any volume that he has, but you know how much how much it can fuck with an O-line's head, because one, they line up all over the place, right? So say they line him up over the center, right? You don't even want your tackle going against Micah Parsons, but you definitely don't want your center. So now we're thinking, all right, we're probably going to try and double team this guy or have the back come and help the center. So when you put that attention and then he drops back out, it just opens up so much shit for everyone else. So I actually do, because he's actually good at dropping back too, right? It's not like, when Rex Ryan would have, these big Bills defensive ends dropping back in the coverage. Because I think he can do it well. Now they've gotten away from just playing him at stack linebacker too, which when they did that in year one, I was like, okay, this is kind of a waste of time. He's just not the same threat at this position that he is on the edge.
And also I feel like a lot of teams, the weaker part of their offensive line is the interior, especially from a pass rushing perspective. So you put Micah Parsons on your center and guard, and you put him in the A gap, and there's another 300-pounder that's lined up right next to him, and you got to wonder, well, what are they going to do? Where are they going to go? And who do I have to really cover here? As opposed to if you're a team with a really good tackle, I'll continue to use my Giants as an example. I want Micah Parsons and Andrew Thomas to face off against each other, just because I think I want to see it from a football perspective, to see those two guys go up against each other. But if you're Dallas, well, why am I going to do that when you have four other guys that are extremely weak and we can go after you? And that's how Micah Parsons has killed a team like the Giants over the last couple of years, by putting him on some of your weakest guys. So I'm interested to see how that actually goes this year. If Micah Parsons is just going to be this defensive end edge rusher, or if they'll continue to line him up all over the place. I think they should continue to do the same with him.
So week one, Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys will travel to Cleveland. We'll just call it the Tom Brady game, since that'll be his first regular season attempt in a booth. The Browns so far, really their camp has been about the return of Deshaun Watson, who's coming back from shoulder surgery, and trying to get healthy on the offensive side of the football, where they are still without their top two offensive tackles. Jack Conklin's coming back from major knee surgery. Jed Wills is coming back from knee surgery. And then, of course, Nick Chubb, whom they lost in that Monday nighter in week 2 when Minkah Fitzpatrick just thrashed his left knee. And so we haven't heard much about Nick Chubb in terms of, he's been put on PUP, but there's no real timetable on him. How worried are you guys about the Browns offense in terms of health-wise going forward? Pennick, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, Chris, I'm more worried about Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills. Now they could be on PUP, and there's a set timetable. Do you? I'm almost just basically just asking you this as a football fan. Do you know the timetable of Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin to basically come back and return?
So, truth be told, I call the Browns preseason games, and obviously I have not been out to practice yet, but I'm keeping up on everything and talking to people there, and they are being extremely tight-lipped. Now, it sounds like Wills is closer than Conklin. Conklin's injury in week 1 was much more severe. So I think they're going to have Wills. The good news for the Browns is that DeJuan Jones, whom they drafted last year out of Ohio State, played exceptionally well the minute Conklin went down. He also, though, had a knee issue that knocked him out the back half of the year. He is healthy. He is participating in camp. He's a full go right now. So if they had to open week 1 with Wills on one side and Jones on the other, it's obviously not the worst thing in the world. Jack Conklin is a 2-time All-Pro. The thing with Chubb is obviously we're all curious to see how he comes back because he has had an amazing start to his career. The first, 5 seasons last year was a wash. And I think we're all just kind of holding his breath that he gets close to what he was because
because they need that running game to live.
Yeah.
That offense can't survive the same way it did last year without him.
No. They did make a good pickup. They picked up Deontay Foreman, and I know that he's a guy that he's playing on his 4th team in the last 4 years. But a couple of years ago in Carolina, when they traded McCaffrey, he became the lead back. He ran for almost 1,000 yards.
You feel a lot better with that than Jerome Ford.
Yep, I would agree with that.
What do you know what position DeJuan Jones has been practicing in or no?
He's been on the right side.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they've used James Hudson, who has gotten some starts. He's a 4th-year guy out of Cincinnati. That
my dream is dead.
Let's remember, though, the Browns were down to their 5th and 6th tackles the last 5 weeks of the season and in the playoff game against Houston, and they were still winning games.
Yeah.
But
the issue is they don't have Callahan anymore.
That is
either.
a big issue.
Do you think Roy Mbatika could get any run this year?
I would be guessing.
We love Big Roy. I
Do
posted
you?
his basketball. So he's one of the international pathway. Was he from Nigeria?
Yes. Yeah.
I believe. So the Giants brought him in, and it was very funny. He liked one post on All Time on Twitter, and it happened to be a John Boy Media one. I think some girl got punched in a track meet or something like that.
Wait.
A breakdown.
But the only stuff we could find on him was he posted some YouTube basketball stuff. So I love Roy Mbatika. I'm rooting for him. I think he's still follows.
Well, maybe if pregame, I'll run up to him and say, "Hey,
come
I
to
work for
Talking
John
Giants guys. Say hello."
Oh, I will absolutely. Maybe you can sign something for Roy.
Oh yeah.
He would like that.
Probably would. He probably would. Yeah, I know. I don't know which one of the two you came up with this, but I love it. The, second-year guys that we think could explode.
It was not you. Was not you. I also want to note.
Here's the issue. I have 8.
I know. I want to note too. I got really worried yesterday because Roman Wilson was carted off of a Steelers practice, but I think it's just an ankle sprain.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be ready by the start of the season. Okay.
Well, before we go, first of all, you guys haven't shown each other your lists, have you?
No.
But here's the issue: is we've been doing the TPPs, and breakout player has been essentially a category without being a category.
I'm gonna go in a different direction than what you think. I had somebody pop into my head as we were recording this.
Are you using the word pop on purpose? Because I have pop.
No.
I wonder how much double up we've got. Do you think there's going to be any repeats? Because we're going to pick one from each conference. So that's 6 guys. Do you think there's going to be? What do you think?
I think there might because Justin mentioned the Bears.
Okay. All right. Well, Pennick, since you came up with
I have
segment,
4. I'm gonna say the other 2 at some point. I'll let you guys go first.
Pennick, since you came up with the segment, why don't you hit lead off here?
Okay, I have my 2. No, let Bobby go first. I don't want to go first.
You go.
What are you deferring? Did you win the toss?
I'm deferring.
Going on here?
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm deferring.
All right, so let's go AFC first. We'll go around the horn, and then we'll go NFC.
Bobby.
Oh, so I didn't even know we were doing it by conference, but I actually think that works out for me. Yeah, it does. I have 2 AFC offenses. I'll go Pop Douglas, the receiver from the Patriots, right? Led them in receiving last year as a 6th-round rookie, 561 yards on 49 catches. I mean, the worst passing offense in the NFL by a pretty wide margin. He was 4th in yak per reception, 4th in missed tackle rate. And I actually watched a film breakdown that A to Z Sports did, who does a really good job. And they showed him he's a legit route runner. He separates quickly, and just he had a lot of yards left on the field by the quarterback play. So Pop Douglas is is that one. I think he's like kind of popular in the fantasy football world right now. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not so tuned into that area of the game. But Pop Douglas on offense, because he's even if it's not a giant breakout year, he won't be being missed nonstop like he was with Jones and Zappi.
Why do we think that he would be a big guy in the fantasy world? Because even if you think he's going to improve, he had less than 600 yards receiving, right?
Yeah. But I think people think he'll be the number one receiver on a team with upgraded quarterback play.
We'll see how much. Jacoby Brissett, I love him. I really do. I don't think he's a 300-yard-a-game guy.
No, but somebody's got to be like the number one receiver on that team.
They do have Jalen Polk. They've got Javon Baker.
Yeah, they got a lot.
Be interesting.
Baker's been making all these highlight plays.
Yeah.
I loved him.
And then throwing the ball into the stands before he gets tackled. Did you see that the other day?
Somebody needs to show up to a page. No, I didn't. I love that move though. Someone needs to like stand up in a wheelchair at their page. Like if we were talking Patriots, we would be mobilizing people to like bring wheelchairs.
Oh, because of what he said after the draft.
Up.
Yeah, because he
said he makes people in wheelchairs stand up.
Yeah, that is what Javon Baker said.
It's an amazing line.
Guys, it's like Jesus, Peter, Paul, and then Javon Baker's fourth on the miraculous healing big board. So, but Pop, I understand. Like, I actually think the receiving group for the Patriots is a little fun because you have so many. Like, you forget that even Juju is still there. Right. Kendrick Bourne coming off the injury, and then the two rookies of Polk and Baker. But I think Pop Douglas is someone who's in line to be a 1,000-yard receiver this year.
Okay. Pennick?
Starting in the AFC.
Correct.
I was actually surprised to see that this guy had as good of a rookie year as he did, but I think he's going to pop off even more. I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid.
That's a good one.
Very good.
Bobby, you probably can tell me a little bit more about him just from a player standpoint, but stats were good last year. Like I said, stats were actually better than what I thought last year, but only 2 touchdowns. He's going to get over 100 targets this year. I mean, he had 73 catches on 91 targets last year, 9.2 yards per reception. So the yards per reception mark is what I really think is going to go up. Average depth of target of 6. I think with his speed, with this athleticism, I think that ADOT is going to go up. I hope it goes up. The yards per reception is going to go up. And only 2 touchdowns last year. I think he could be a weapon in the red zone as well. And I think the touchdowns can go up. They're just going to have to rely on him a lot more. And you draft this guy in the first round, 25th overall last year. Dalton Kincaid is going to be way more a part of this offense than what he was last year.
Yeah, they call him Swole Beasley in Buffalo because he kind of has that Cole Beasley role, but he's twice the size. So he's going to be such a big part of their quick game stuff, which everyone views Josh Allen as just chuck it down the field, but they do a good job keeping it going on, moving the chains. And he's just someone who does have that explosive threat, at the tight end position, and a quarterback who's willing to take advantage of that. So it seems like Keon Coleman's had a good camp, and they're going to use him a lot. Mm-hmm. So maybe the receiver room isn't as dry as we thought, but Kincaid, it would be smart of them to rely on Kincaid as their number one option to at least start the season. And even though he's only in his second year, he's one of the few guys that Josh Allen has some familiarity with. Like, that entire room outside of Shakur, and I'm talking about the receiver room, could be new. Yeah, and they might even pick Curtis Samuel in the slot more than they do Shakir too. So like you said, it's you got Coleman, Samuel, Shakir, Valdez Scantling's over there. Mac Hollins is over there. Chase Claypool. Yeah. It really, like you said, it's literally all new people outside of Shakir, and it'll be interesting to see how they balance Shakir and Curtis Samuel. Yeah, it's a good pick. Gosh, I guess we're all staying in the AFC East because I'm going to go with Christian Gonzalez, whose rookie season was cut short by a major shoulder injury. In the first month, and he got hurt in game 4, PFF had him graded pretty much off the charts for a rookie cornerback. In fact, there was one game against Tyreek Hill where he held Hill when they were matched up to 3 catches for 32 yards, and Gonzalez also had a pick. So when you are drafting and you're trying to find a guy that can be sticky, they've found theirs. I think that this guy is just going to be phenomenal. We were all kind of surprised when he fell to 17 in that draft. Devin Weatherspoon, I think, went 5th overall to Seattle. Commanders. And then everybody's like, what happened to Christian Gonzalez? Where did he go? And when
he fell to 17. Like, there's a lot of question marks in that Patriots building. I don't think this kid's one of them. I think he is destined for stardom.
Falling to 17 is one thing. Being picked after Emmanuel Forbes is a whole nother thing that happened. So yeah, it's like he was so good last year. Just like I didn't even consider him a breakout because it's just like please don't let that injury affect you negatively because he was so good. But I do think one of the worries, and I've probably said this 20 times this offseason with the Patriots, is that they've lost the greatest defensive mind in football history, and they have a lot of guys, and they've paid a lot of these guys too. Like Pepper's got a contract the other day, who Belichick knew how to use them perfectly. Will Gerard Mayo be a good defensive coordinator or a good defensive coach? Probably, but is he going to put those guys in just the perfect spot on a week in, week out basis, be able to change while simplifying it for the guys? But Gonzalez should be that cog that no matter what they're doing is just a baller for them the entire time, especially if Judon's not there.
Did you have another AFC one you wanted to share, Bobby?
Will Levis. I went quarterback.
Here you are. You are on the Tennessee train. What's going on here? Is there somebody in the building you're close with?
No, man. Will Levis's film it's either not fun or it's super fun.
So I just think the offense put him in awful situations last year. Where the hell are my notes on this? What the where? Oh, here they are.
Yeah.
Like the offense stunk. Like they didn't have any quick game. They had no RPOs. It was a lot of just run, pass, and then 2-man routes down the field. And that's why Levis threw it down the field so much. The play action game wasn't like a good play action, but they used it so much, but it didn't have any outlets to it. It was just very much deep to check down. But Levis has like a fearlessness to his game to fit the ball in tight spots past guys. He throws a good great ball. I think his accuracy has been solid. He kind of has, that playmaker gamer ability and willingness to take it. Honestly, that's might be more a negative because he could get injured playing that way. He moves guys with, I watched a good amount of Levis film and I was pretty impressed. He needs to be better pre-snap. There are some throws in the double covers that you just can't have. But I just think if they kept the same coaching staff, I wouldn't be saying this. But with the new coaching staff, with the addition of Calvin Ridley, bringing Tony Pollard in there to go with Tyjae Spears, even bringing Tyler Boyd in there who can help be a chain mover, which they just didn't have last year. I just think it's a pretty solid situation for Levis, and I think he'll I think even if at the end of the year I'm saying he's not good, I think there will be a good amount of people who are saying he's good because I think Callahan's going to put him in a good spot.
I just looked at their schedule, and I try not to be a slave to the schedule.
It's rough.
But it is rough. Like, out of the gate, they're at Chicago. So who knows? Week 1, I always want to take that because there's always 1 or 2 games where you're like, I can't believe that happened. But when you have 5 months to prepare for your first opponent or 4 months to prepare, weird things can happen. After that, they're home against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Then they are home against Aaron Rodgers' old team. Then they're at Miami before their bye week. Colts, Bills, Lions, Patriots. There's your kind of soft one, perhaps. Chargers, who knows what they're going to look like by midseason. Vikings, fine. And then they have 5 division games the back half of the year. They will not have played the Texans nor the Jags at that point. I still think record-wise it's going to be rough. I hope that
I have
Tennessee,
them at 7-10.
I think that's really optimistic. I think if they get to
they
7
won 6
wins,
games last year.
Yeah, they did win that one down in Miami. Wasn't that that was a Monday nighter? I think.
Yeah,
it was that weird game where Miami was up by 2 touchdowns with 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, and the Levis comeback.
Yeah. Well, listen, guy's a stud. He could always go into bodybuilding if this stuff doesn't work out, based on his Instagram.
I haven't seen his Instagram much, to be honest.
Yeah, haven't taken note of it. I'll look it up after this.
Yeah, I'm sure you've probably dabbled. NFC, who wants to go first here? Pennick, you want to do that? You want to hit lead off for us in the NFC?
Yes. Offensive player. Steve Avila.
A center.
Yes.
Really? You're picking a center as your breakout player?
I am. Because I love
Pennick.
him. Yeah.
Do you think people at home are going to be like, yeah, I cannot wait to watch Steve Avila push this year?
Hey, there's a Steve Avila film breakdown on this channel.
There is, man. And they're They're making the move to center, which is something that I thought that he eventually would wind up doing in his NFL career. And I'm saying Steve Avila because he did have a good rookie year. And guards, he was at guard last year. Guards usually struggle. They usually flat out struggle. And it's like, man, you're really asking for a lot of year 2, year 3 growth. Steve Avila had a good rookie year. And I think center is going to fit him even better on a Rams offensive line that is continuing to improve. And you got to protect Stafford. So I'm good. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this exercise is because I wanted to talk about some of the draft crushers that we had from last year. And there arguably wasn't one for me that was bigger than Steve Avila on the offensive line last year. There.
Okay. Are you done talking? Because
I'm done talking.
I kind of turned off my brain when you said you were talking about a center. I understand their importance. I have never watched a center on a single play in the NFL when I'm watching a live game.
Well, you should start watching Steve Avila.
Okay. I'll hop in here.
He has to be like the best center in the NFL for people to like take notice of him. But I love it though. I love the trench play. Who do you got?
I've got 2. This is a 2-for-1. I'm going to use my Groupon here on the Packers' second-year tight ends because I feel like they will be forever intertwined. Remember when they drafted Luke Musgrave in the second round and then they went Tucker Kraft in the third? And we were like, did y'all forget
Kraft go to college?
South Dakota State, I believe.
Or funny story about South Dakota.
North Dakota State.
Which one? Funny story about South Dakota. Punched out Scott in the face. So you got the Packers tight ends?
Yes, I do. Because they one followed the other, right? So Musgrave was the first half of the year was a guy that were like, oh, okay, super athletic out of Oregon State, kind of always hurt, but he's doing good things. And then he splits open his spleen. And so they got to sit him. And now all of a sudden Tucker Kraft, who had basically 0 catches the first half of the year, ends up having 31 the rest of the year. And then Musgrave comes back for the Dallas game, and he's got 6 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. I just feel like when they're in 2 tight ends that they're in good shape there. And I think for Jordan Love, perfect targets. I think they're fun to watch. 2 tight ends growing up together. It's kind of cute.
It's actually pretty interesting because you mentioned Musgrave got hurt, but they have 4 receivers who are part of that rotation, right? So they're going to get the majority of yards. But if you look at their rookie tight end output was 65 catches and over 700 yards. That's good rookie tight end output. So I like that. I'm interested to see how they use them because again they have 4 receivers who they rely on with Watson, Dobbs, Reed, and Wicks. So that's a pretty interesting one. You mentioned spleen. I want to tell a story, and I usually don't do this. One of my favorite stories to tell people is my mom went on some retreat or something for a week when I was probably 13, and my other brothers were 10 and 7. And my dad decided we could go ride dirt bikes with no shoes, no helmets, no shirts, nothing, just riding little 50cc dirt bikes. And so I popped a wheelie on accident because I didn't know how to shift the correct way. And the bike falls over. The muffler just leaves a huge burn on my leg. And then my brother jumps on the dirt bike, kicks it on. The throttle's stuck. So now my brother's going full speed down the road with no helmet, no shirt on this 50cc, and he can't stop it. So my dad, who happens to be down the road, tackles him off this dirt bike and then takes us to CVS where we're groaning in pain. It was putting bandages on me. And my brother's just in really bad pain. We go to sleep the next morning. We just happened to have this guy who had been a nurse working for my dad at the time. And finally he's like, Rob, you got to take this kid to the fucking hospital. He's in serious pain. So it takes my brother to the hospital. He has a rupture. They're recommending that he should remove his spleen. And my dad decides to not have his spleen removed. And this is the second day that my mom's not been gone. And I think my dad told her the night before she got back, oh, by the way, I made the decision to keep our son's spleen. Bobby has a huge burn on his leg.
And the kids had a great time.
Yeah, it's just the most insane. I love telling that story to everybody.
How old were you?
I can't remember the exact. I was probably 12 or 13, and then my other brother who got hurt would have been 9 or 10.
How fast was he going when your dad had to tackle him?
So it's a 50cc dirt bike, so probably 20 to 30 miles per hour because the throttle was stuck.
I love your face
Holy
right now, Rose.
It might have been less. It might have been less.
I grew up in suburban Cleveland, Ohio. We do not do this stuff where I'm from.
I'm going to look
Certainly,
up.
we don't do it without helmets.
So 50cc dirt bike top speed. It was probably around 15 miles an hour because the top speed's around 25.
I wish we had video of your dad tackling your
It
brother.
was a smart move though, because
Of
if not,
course
he
it
would have
was.
just had to run into a house or something. You know.
Holy shit! So he saved his spleen.
Yeah, well, the hospital recommended that he removed his spleen, and my
Yeah, I'm
dad's
not so
like,
sure
no.
the spleen is worth saving.
I don't even know really
does a
what the
spleen
spleen
do?
is or what it does, but I think my dad just didn't want to tell my mom that he did have his spleen removed. Instead, he just he still has it, so we're all
It
good.
just filters blood, controls blood cell levels, stores blood and iron, and produces lymphocytes.
It's just there's a few my dad's stories I like to tell, and that's one of my favorites.
You know who else who doesn't have a spleen? Steve Avila. He's tough.
No, come
Doesn't
on.
need a spleen.
Could you imagine
Watch
having
him
to
this
tell
year. You'll be able to tell he doesn't have a spleen when you watch him play.
Could you imagine having to build up the strength to tell your wife that all that happened, Rose?
Listen, man. Don't.
I'm
I'm the only
a
one with
danger
kids
to
on
our
this one.
children.
Yeah, I've got some good stories, but it's gone the other way where Michelle has had to tell me stuff.
Oh
Oh.
my gosh!
Oh yeah.
So she's the one got him on the 50cc's.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They're probably out dirt biking right now. All right, what do you got?
My dad made
To
me
the
work the
NFC.
next day, by the way, too. Anyways,
Okay.
This is what we did in the Skinner household. Do you have an NFC, or did you already go?
me?
Yeah, you haven't gone yet.
No. So Justin signed me up for Kalijah Cansey, and I'm gonna say him. I'm just in love with him, right? He was my guy in last year's draft. He had that injury in the beginning of the season, but in the playoffs, he really just took it up a level, right? He had the third highest pressure percentage for all defensive tackles, only behind Fletcher Cox and Matabukwe. He was fifth in win rate, and Vita Vea, his teammate, was first. And, he had the 2 sacks and 2 tackles for a loss against the 2 best offensive lines in the NFL with the Lions and the Eagles in those games, by the way, too. And he's just a disruptor, right? In 14 games, he had 12 tackles for a loss. I think the sack numbers are going to go up and they're going to be more consistent. So Kalijah Cansey is that. But I wanted to mention somebody else. Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback for the Bears.
Yes.
Mm.
Last year in his first 9 games, he gave up 49 catches on 66 attempts, 490 yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 6 PBUs, and 6 penalties. In the last 7 games, 23 of 44, right? So the completion percentage went from 74 to 52%. 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 54 yards to 49 yards per game, still the same. But he had the 4 interceptions, 7 pass breakups, and 1 penalty. The Bears' turnaround on defense had a lot to do with Montez Sweat, but also had a lot to do with Tyreek Stevenson starting to play a lot better opposite of Jalen Johnson. So he's still going to get to be CB2 to the number 1 corner in the NFL, so he's going to get a lot of targets on him. But he's someone with really good ball skills who could, he could end up leading the league in interceptions.
Yeah, and you need to have those good ball skills if you're playing on the other side of somebody who won't get targeted.
Yeah, I mean, he was 3rd in pass breakups as a rookie, right? So throughout all his struggles, he was still able to get his hands on the ball, 5th in interceptions. So, he was. I think I mocked to the Giants last year was Cansey round 1, Tyreek Stevenson round 2. So a little bit of bias in there, but I think both those guys really played a lot better in the back half of their seasons.
Very good. I like it. We bring a full circle. We started with the Bears. We end with a bear.
Well, I think I misconstrued the exercise.
Why?
I thought we were going to talk about 4 players in total. I would like to change my Steve Avila pick.
No, don't. I do not want to guilt you into it. That
Just
was
add
really
another
No,
one.
I have
Don't
just add
change
it
it. Just
on.
add it.
I'm gonna add
That's
it
what
on.
I did.
I'm
Hold
going to
on,
add
is
it
it-
on.
Is it a long snapper?
No.
Okay.
It's the Marvion Overshown. Bobby Skinner.
The linebacker?
You're giving me a look.
You think he's going to be like a breakout player?
I think he could start. He's getting first team reps with the Cowboys right now. He was going to start last year. I
Okay.
think they had plans for him. Then he has a season-ending injury. I just think he's fast. I think he's physical, and I think in this specific Mike Zimmer defense, I think he's gonna be a player that you're gonna highlight on the Cowboys. Be like, hey, where did this guy come from? I also don't believe in Damone Clark.
Yeah, me neither. But and I guess he'll be in a good spot with Kendricks kind of no being the
The veteran.
leader of
Yeah.
that Mike Zimmer defense.
So you just play fast.
Yeah, so that I guess that's a good one.
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
gonna,
I mean,
he's gonna have a good front in
Sure.
front of him, good secondary behind him. So that is a good one.
There you go.
I didn't think about him.
That makes up.
I don't know how his rookie year went, so I don't have.
No, he didn't play. He got hurt in the summer.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I don't have any takes on, but I did like him fairly well as a prospect.
Pennick, your confidence level just rose through the roof. Look at you. You're sitting up proud.
I am.
You feel better. I got to be honest with you. When you were making your Steve Avila presentation today to the
Were you
courtroom,
disappointed?
I wasn't disappointed. What I'm saying is it's hard for the average fan to go find a center. They know where they are on the given play.
He might he might be the third best offensive lineman on that interior too.
Oh, come on.
Oh boy. Wow.
Come on.
So when he's starting in the Super Bowl in New Orleans,
That's right.
Pennick can go, see?
Told you.
Told you.
Well, I think we should, at some point we need to go to like do media week at the Super Bowl, and we'll show him the clip on because no one's going to be at his booth because he's the center.
That's true. Well, he won't even get a booth.
Yeah, that's true.
He'll be one of the guys roaming the floor.
Do you do media night?
I used to go. Now we don't. We don't. Send
I feel like
as
it was
many
a much
people.
bigger deal when it was the daytime thing. I think they tried to make it prime time to make it this big event, but I felt like it was more prestige around it when you got to see the clips on like 6 o'clock Sports Center, and like no one's.
Yeah, it was a little bit. There was a little bit of mystery to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
there was more mystery to it back then. Now I don't mind it at all. Like I was there for the first one that they did at night. I think it was in San Francisco at Super Bowl 30, and it was really cool the way they had the players like come out in this whole area up top, and then they walked out and they're all videoing it, and I thought it was cool. It was fine. It's just there's so many people there asking stupid shit.
Yeah,
so
I think it probably used to be funny when there'd be like a couple people, but now everyone's going in there
with a shtick.
So it's like if everyone's doing it, then no one's really doing it.
That's the point.
And it's probably a lot of people who think they're way funnier than they actually are too.
Yep, that usually happens. So this is only the set. I mean, we have a game on Thursday night, obviously, and then we don't have any games this weekend. So this will be only the second weekend we will not have games. We don't have them on Labor Day weekend either, right?
Nope.
Okay. And then other than that, your weekends are full of football.
Woo!
We cannot wait for. So we got one more show before it really ramps up next week. We're ready.
We should just unironically just do a full breakdown of the Hall of Fame game.
Hey, early next week, you'll have to tune in to see exactly where our heads are at. And I want that full Steve Avila breakdown on my desk.
Every year I get excited for the Hall of Fame game, and by the second quarter, I'm just on my phone with it in the background.
You've tapped out. I get it. All right. Producer Mikey, thanks so much for doing a great job and putting it together. Bobby Skinner, Steve Avila's agent. Awesome job as always. I am Chris Rose. We will see you early next week.
Hold on.
What?
Can you make plans to go to the Hall of Fame thing next year? Because I think we're going to be there for Eli.
Oh, well.
Don't start.
If you could put in for that with NFL Network.
Don't stop smiling over there.
And I think there's a good chance the Giants will be the Hall of Fame game for that. So
if Eli's in, I'm going to bust my ass to try and get there. How's that sound?
I love it. All right, we'll see you there.
Okay. We can book some sort of Motel 6 or something together. It'll be great.
Oh yeah,
it's fine by me. I'll sleep in the van.
We will see you next week here on Football Today.